talk tonight about sea-run brown trout, and I am not going to be tying sea-run brown trout flies. I'll just be doing some trout stuff from up in my neck of the woods. And what I'm basically tying here is almost like a clinkhammer style emerger. This would be like a flavolina. I tie these like a flavolina, like the small green drake. But this style I do basically the drake patterns, gray drakes, brown drakes, green drakes, flavolina. And then after that I'll probably tie up another emergent pattern that's going to be more for PMDs, mahogany duns, blowing olives, all that good stuff. So we're off and running. But both of these are going to incorporate a wee bit of foam into them, because the rivers I got on up there are pretty high gradient and they need all the help that they can get to float. There's a river I got up there on called the South Fork of the Snake River. Probably a lot of you guys have fished it before. People think that's a high gradient river, and it really isn't. That's a moderate gradient. It averages probably, I think, about 9 feet per mile. On the other side of the border is the Snake River, where I guide quite a bit as well. There's a section on that that's about 25 feet per mile. That river averages about 17 feet per mile, so that's a much higher gradient stream. And I'm obviously using all of these flies on both those rivers, as well as others that I guide on, like the Green and the New Fork and the Salt. But it's really meant for these higher gradient streams. There's a guy named Ken Burkholder. Some of you may know him. Some of you have probably seen him tie.
Burkus.
Yeah, he's a good dude. But anyway, he gave me the idea for this fly here. He had a fly called the Handy-Downdy Emerger, and that's what this fly is basically going to be based on. But I'm tying in the wing right now. Clip off some of that there so that I can start to wrap this back and form a bit of a tapered body. Get that thorax kind of tapered. Scott Sanchez, he ties a fly called the Everything Emerger. And Sanchez, in one of his books, A New Generation of Trout Flies, he says all emergers typically have 4 things in common: trailing shuck, protruding wing, a jumble of legs, and a compressed body. And so that's what I'm attempting to form here, is a bit of a compressed body, so it kind of is tapering down some. Sometimes I do that really well, and other times not so well. I'm going to press this back just a bit. I'm going to stand that wing up for us. As I said, this is kind of a clinkhammer style, so it's going to be kind of that curved hook. Clinkhammer, which is one of the all-time great emergers, doesn't have a trailing shuck, most of them, or at least the original doesn't. I'm going to give that a snip. Taper it like that. I'm going to start to take this back. Now I'm going to get our shuck material on real fast. We're going to have 2 types of shuck material on this. I'm kind of following the steps of Howard Cole, who would usually do 2 types of different shuck material. And so first of this is going to be some peacock herl, ostrich herl. That's going to be the Circe. That's going to be those rear antennas coming off. Howard Cole, for his patterns, he would use barred lemon mallard fibers. And this is kind of looks all bushy and whatnot, and it certainly is. Once it gets wet, it starts to taper very, very well. So it really does look like the Circe. I'm going to pull them to length. And that's about the length I'm looking at. I'm going to start to wrap this forward, this thread, just kind of cover this stuff up. One, to secure it, but also to build up a little bit more body in that thorax up at the top, or abdomen rather, up at the top. So that stuff is in, and then what's the most commonly used shuck material out there is obviously Zelon, and that's what we're going to use for the rest of that, the rest of the shuck. It's going to look like the rest of that exoskeleton. And this is just so everything here is going to be olive that I'm doing here. This is the small green drake. On the waters I guide on, the green drake. Bit more prominent on the South Fork than it is on the snake. On the snake, this style here, the flavolina, is a bit more common. And of course, I just live a hop, skip, and a jump from the Henry's Fork, which is a big-time green drake river as well. So you just kind of change your size up, and you will have your green drake version.
Jacques, how you doing?
Okay, I got that Zelon on. I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. And so that is shorter than the ostrich hurl that I tied in. Now I'm going to crawl this up a bit more now. And I'm going to go ahead and keep wrapping forward, get all the rest of that Zelon down. And part of that, again, is to build up some body. I'm going to go in here and just give the rest of that a snip. Now I'm going to come back down to the body. I'm going to tie in our ribbing material. I'm going to come right down to where that shuck material starts. There.
And the thread you use?
This is just 8/0 monocord for the most part. I've used flat wax, which is not bad for this because you're trying to form so much body there and build up so much body that a flat wax nylon would be. It might make it a little bit quicker, but I'm never really in a hurry anymore like I used to be. Our ribbing material is going to be thread material as well, and it's going to be waxed monocord. And this stuff's brown.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually double this over. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just wrap this thread down again, once again, kind of helping form that body, but to also cover up a little bit of that monocord that we tied in, because it's kind of doubled over right now. Bring that right back up here to the top. Now I'm going to start to twist that monocord. Make it nice and tight. All right. And that ought to do it. And so now you have a little bit of a ribbed body there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat this. You guys familiar with this stuff, Softex? I'm trying to put it in front of the camera. Ugh. This stuff here. You see, that stuff right there. So I'm going to just coat that body with that, and that's going to firm it up and whatnot and make it a bit of a harder body.
What does that do for the durability of the fly?
It penetrates it. It's going to bind that monocord to the tying thread that I used for the body. Everything does that, but this stuff, it's a bit more. You'll see it's very clear. It's almost translucent. So part of it is the look as well. But I like using that more than using head cement or super glue. And super glue was coated on the body of the original handy-dandy emerger.
When it dries, what type of texture does that material have?
Well, that's the cool thing. When it dries, it almost feels like there's no texture at all. You can almost rub your finger along it, and you can kind of feel that ribbing material. But you'll see that after I coat this in here. But it dries very, very quickly. That's the great thing about it. Once I get this in here, I can just start tying on the rest of the material almost immediately.
As you put that material on, is it darkening the thread? Is that what you ultimately want?
No, not necessarily. It just does that. But no, I don't think it didn't. I'm not using it because of that. I'm using it because of the penetrating qualities of this stuff. You can kind of see it's a little glossy there now. Clean this up just a bit. Does it look as good up there as it does down here? It looks better up there. Yeah. So if I touch this, there's virtually nothing there on my finger. Because it's already pretty much dried. Okay, now I'm going to tie in my foam. And this foam is basically going to be used to kind of support that wing. A foam support, what I'm going to be doing is notching it and then putting it in right just kind of around the wing. You'll see what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to take just basically some 2mm closed-cell foam, give it a nip. And so I'm just using a piece basically like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put kind of a V in here. I'm going to put a little notch in this. So I got a little notch like that. See that? Then I'm going to stick this kind of around the wing. And then I'm going to take that thread around, I'm going to wrap and tie down those little pieces of foam sticking out after it had been notched. Okay, now I'm going to give this a nip right there, nip off these little excess ends. And you see a little bit of foam still kind of sticking out here in front of the wing. Out here, that's all going to get covered with some dubbing material. Now I'm going to trim this down a bit. And that is literally all the foam that I'm going to have right there. Okay, now I'm going to tie in my hackle. And this is just your regular brown rooster hackle. Okay, going to get this hackle tied in. Then you can also tie in legs right here too. You can tie in, use Z-Lon, you can tie in legs. Basically, I would tie them in right in about here so they're hanging right in through there. Almost right where that foam support meets the wing, and they'd be just coming, down straight off the abdomen or the thorax of the fly.
When you sit down to fly, what process do you use for putting that fly together?
Durability. Part of it I get might be the thread, but I come from a place where the one fly is a big deal. This tournament we have called the one fly. So I carry super glue everywhere I go. And, super glue really, I'm actually going to use super glue on this fly at the very, very end. Because in that tournament, that fly starts to come apart. There's not much else you can do about it. Okay. I've used Angora dubbing for this before, which is pretty good stuff too. It has a bit more body and it has a bit more buggy looking, so you can do that as well. But I'm just going to use your regular rabbit dubbing here. That ought to do it. I'll apply a little bit more dubbing here. But you can still see that does create some bugginess there for sure. But Angora is much more buggy. Just has quite a bit more bugginess to it. Okay, I'm just going to raise this fly up a bit like so. Okay, now I'm going to give my hackle a wind here. I'm going to do quite a few of these. I'm just going to go around it. That ought to be enough right there. I'll give that a nip. So you got a fair amount of hackle there, plus you have that piece of foam there as well. And so this fly is really about buoyancy. That's why you're using it. Good part of this fly is supposed to be submerged. If you look at it, I'll put my bodkin in. just about everything from there down. Oh boy, let me see if I can twist this the right way. There we go. All that's going to be subsurface. Everything above it will be above the surface. So it's already going to be a fly with a lot of it below the surface. Now, on those high gradient streams, you need as much buoyancy as possible. So that little piece of foam goes a long way. It helps out quite a bit. Okay. Now, one of the few times I actually use dubbing wax is for a fly like this, because I'm going to be throwing some half hitches in to secure it. You can secure it right there at the eye of the hook, but I'd like to do it this way. And this is just going to kind of lubricate this thread so that it pulls a little bit easier. So I'm going to come around like so, and just got to kind of make sure you're underneath all of that hackle, which is easier said than done. And I think I'm under it. By God, I think I am. So it's looking like there. Not bad. I'll do one more half hitch. Okay. So it's 3 half hitches there, and obviously half hitches won't cut it. That ain't gonna keep that thing, keep that together. So this is where I'm going to use my super glue. Just like Brill cream, a little dab is gonna do it. Okay, so I'm going to go right at that joint right under the hackle. And that's all you need there. But I'm also going to do it, again, just a tiny dab above the hackle where the wing meets the hackle. That's so that that hackle will not slide up that wing. Now, if you're applying it down there, most likely that hackle's not going to slide anyway, but to be on the safe side, I'm going to put it there as well. But I like making these so you can kind of see that tapered abdomen there. When I tie the green drake and the gray drake and the brown drake, make those bodies just a bit more narrower, and the shuck is a bit more full. Well, I wouldn't say fuller, but a bit more longer. And that's just some observations I've seen with green drakes and a fly called a hecuba. Is it seems that as large as those flies are, there seems to be a bit more compression in that body. But that's basically a booty drake emerger, but it's the Flavolina version on kind of a size 12 nymph hook. I'll go up to a size 10 for your regular drakes. And remember, you can tie in those legs too. Those legs can be tied in right there. And just, 6, 8, 10 strands of Zelon. Oh, we're going to do another emerger. This is going to be more of a Quiggly style emerger. The Quiggly Cripple and the Quiggly's Film Critic are probably my 2 favorite emergers of all time, except for that one that I just tied, which might be my favorite of all time. This is going to be a straight chain hook. So you think of a Quiggly Cripple, tied primarily on a straight chain hook. That's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're going to be doing here as well on this one. And again, we're going to be using a little bit of foam, but using it in a little bit of a different way. So this is going to be kind of a PMD emerger, but it's going to be more of a like Parachute Adams type color. So it's going to be gray more than anything else. But there will be some white on it, including the thread that I'm going to use. So when I'm flattening my barbs, and yeah, this one has a barb on it, so I'm going to use your good old Black & Decker Stanley. And what I try and do is get it into the grooves, that you can kind of see the toothy grooves right there, and get it into the groove. We'll see if this actually works. And then I'm going to roll this back and forth. See how I'm doing that?
pliers in the field with you?
I have a pair in the field with me. What do you guys think? Is that good enough?
It'll work.
Thank you. You know, there's obviously a lot of hooks that are made that come without the barb to begin with, that you're going to be tying on. 8/0 white. We'll get our wing on first, as usual. Oh, I didn't tell you what my wing material is, did I? So the wing material on that last fly was EP fibers. Okay? This was the dirty olive version. This is going to be basically your cream version of EP fibers. When the hang down, so if you guys know of Ken Burkholder, he's a huge fan of bear hair. Big grizzly bear hair guy. And has come upon hides of this and sells it a patch about as big as this for $100. And I was in Kazakhstan and brought back some Siberian brown bear hair. And the idea is that when you use that brown bear hair, when you cut it off the hide, you tie that section that you trim, that gets tied on as your wing. And the reason he advocates, and most people advocate, is that translucentness of the sun going through your bear hair fibers has a big realistic look to it. Now the problem is I start to run out of bear hair because I don't know how to really come upon it. So this is the next closest material that I think has that quality to it. And that's EP fibers. So that's what I use. Okay, we're going to get that wing tied in. That wing's going to just kind of be coming off your hook, kind of, obviously going off the eye, and it'll be kind of at a slight angle, again, just like the wing you would find on a Quiggly cripple. I'm going to wrap this back just a bit. And once again, I'll start to cut this so that it can be tapered some. It's starting to roll on me just a bit. Come forward to that wing again, right there at the base of it, and wrap forward some. And that should be a sufficient gap there between my wing and the eye of my hook I can work with. I'm going to give that wing just a bit of a trim, but I like that length that it's at right now. Okay, we'll come on back and we'll do our shuck. And once again, we have some ostrich hurl, and we're going to do kind of the same thing. We're going to have that ostrich hurl to be the Circe, and then we'll have some Zelon as our the rest of the shuck material, more full-bodied stuff. Those are in. I'm going to give them a tug. And that's about the length I'm looking at right there. Come forward a bit. And once again, some Zelon. Again, that'll be trimmed a bit shorter than the actual tail material. There. Now I'll wrap that forward, get that all on there. What is this? Size 12 to size 14 is typically what I'm using for these. But this looks to me, I just grabbed some hooks and threw them on my caddy. This looks like about a size 12. You probably don't want to go any bigger than that with a PMD emerger, but. Okay, so like I said, it's a PMD emerger, but I'm going to be going kind of parachute atom style, so a lot of those kind of colors are going to be involved, and so particularly the abdomen, so I'm going to just be using some light Antron dubbing here. Get this thread all lubricated up. Before I do that, I should probably tie in my ribbing material. Ribbing material for this will not be thread. It will be some wire. So this is just your fine gold wire. Okay, we'll start to bring that forward. I'm gonna end that probably about right, well, maybe one more turn. I'll end it right there. Because I need to leave some room for the thorax material. Now I'm gonna wrap my wire here, reverse wrap. 3 to 4, maybe 5 turns. Okay, so now we're going to use some foam again. So the thorax is going to be foam, and I'm basically going to be using some razor foam, basically, half a millimeter or so. And that's going to be just wrapped, just this polymer, just like we'll do with, we're going to do with our hackle. We just did it with our dubbing material. So I'm just going to give this a nice thin cut here, as even as I can. A lot easier with the razor blade. I don't have it with me. Let's see, I kind of cut that fairly thin. That doesn't look as thick. This is really thinner than it looks, but it's a fairly thin piece of razor foam. So I'm gonna get that tied in there now. That and we're just going to kind of wrap it right over itself, basically. Maybe bring it forward just a little bit. You're going to form just a little bulb there. And that is your thorax. Stand that wing up just a bit, which is what I done at the beginning. That stands it up some. Okay. And now we'll get our hackle tied in here. And this is just basically honey hackle. Okay, that's nice and secured. Okay, we're gonna wrap this. Now I have hackle pliers here, and I just, for some reason, never use freaking hackle pliers for whatever reason. Okay. So it's basically 2 to 3 wraps there. That's all you need. You've got that. Rest of that foam there. Oop. Little whip finish there. Now, if this is a one-fly fly, I would be applying some super glue right there on both sides of the wing, but this is not. So whip finish that should be just fine. You can apply a little bit of adhesive. But there you go. Your fly is off and running and ready to roll. So that's the PMD version. You have, I'll do this with Blue Wing Olives. Mahogany Dun is probably the one I do the best. Probably the version that outperforms the other, this one and the Blue Wing Olive. That's the one I'll use in, September and October. But the fishing up there is so damn good in September and October. So that's when I happen to be using the Mahogany Merger, and it kicks tail pretty darn well. I squeezed out a whopping 2 flies there.
Thank you, Boots.
Thank you, guys.